Hello legends and super legends, welcome to Veloharmony. This is one of the warmest days we've had since winter kicked in. It's actually 11°C right now, and it's going to go up to like 16°C during the ride. It's damp, there's rain most of the night, so the roads are going to be a little messy. So I've got my mud guards, I'm taking the Colnago, got the mud guards on there, and it's going to feel cooler than 11°C because of all the moisture, and we had a front that came in. So I'm wearing this is the Rafa thermal protein jersey. It was just a regular base layer underneath, a sleeveless base layer, because it's a little warmer. And we've got a guy visiting us from Los Angeles, came to ride with us. He's here on business. He brought his bike, and he had contacted me about maybe almost a month ago, saying that he was going to try to join us. His name is Jose Tamayo. So I'm excited about that. Frankie's here. Frankie's going to be riding today. Paul's going to be there. So it'll be great to have Jose around, and I'll introduce him to you guys. He's a legend on the channel. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready. So on this ride, since we had people visiting from California, we ended up having 2 riders visiting from California. We decided to do Tomball, Texas. That would kind of keep us fairly close. I wasn't sure how many hours these guys were used to riding, so I wanted to keep it shorter this week, you know, for this ride, until we got to know them a little better before we took them out longer. So it turned out being a pretty good ride. Jose likes to go hard off the front, so he did quite a bit of that. Everybody seemed to have fun on the ride. So overall, it's a very interesting ride. Told the guys in the intro, I think it's on. Yeah. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, thank you.
You guys are brothers?
No, we're co-workers.
Co-workers, okay, okay.
I got him
Into cycling?
Into cycling.
Oh,
We've
good.
been on the road for 2 months, so.
Oh, okay. So
like,
you guys, yeah, travel on business, man. That's cool. You know, actually, that's a good vehicle to have. You can throw your bike in there. Yeah. Welcome, guys. Other guys are going to be here. I got a text from Alan. I don't know what he's doing, but we'll see. Frankie! All right. Yeah, you guys should be good. It's supposed to be like around 60 for the high during the ride, so it's not too cold. This is one of the warmest rides we've had. So yeah. Yeah. Oh, everybody's here. I love this gimbal. It works really well. Alan's here. Yeah. You see how it keeps the camera steady? No matter what you do. Let me turn this on. I'll set it up and then give it to you, my brother. All right. Let's roll. If you get hot, let us know. Okay. Paul's dressed for 30-degree weather. He got all kinds of stuff on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the rain jacket, you know, I don't care about water much. So
yeah, no, you're good.
All right. But it didn't show a lot of rain in the forecast.
Yeah, it's not supposed to rain. You're right. It was supposed to be overcast, so probably, I think we'll be okay. It's just the wet from last night. Go left, Frankie. We're gonna take you guys to Tomball, Texas. There we go. Finally found GPS. Guys, be careful here. Watch that metal. Clear.
Frankie said he was wearing that jacket to keep the road spray off his jersey. And in a little bit, he ended up taking it off because we have to stop to check Alan's bike for something. So he used that opportunity to take it off because it's a warm morning. So with the jersey and that jacket on top, he got a little warm. So I had told Jose, you know, whatever you feel like doing as far as your pace. I asked him what kind of hours they normally do. And he said, excuse me, 2.5 to 3 hours is reasonable. So we decided to just go to Tomball and try to keep it around 50 miles or so or less, just to kind of get a feel. But, you know, it ended up being a good ride. He rides pretty well. He went off the front quite a few times. I was just kind of getting a feel for what kind of riding he likes to do. It turns out that he had enough fun that both he and Hugo will be joining us next week.
I'm gonna give this to Paul. Keep riding. I'm gonna slip back. Oh.
Our visitors from Los Angeles, Jose Tamayo and Hugo Godina.
We're going straight, Frankie.
All the way from the City of Angels to join us on a ride. So I hand the camera to Paul here. Roll through. Usually I have to have the camera early on when I set up the GPS to get everything synced so it can pick up the duration and so forth. And then I hand it to Paul. And then throughout the ride we go back and forth as needed. As you can see, it's like a British morning here. It's foggy, damp, you know, but it's warm. You see it says 9C, and right now it feels like 9C. I had noticed that my heart rate seemed elevated probably the first hour of the ride. And that's normal for me because during the week I really didn't do much. I was busy. I didn't ride my usual schedule. So when I take off a lot of time, it takes a little while for my heart rate to settle. My legs felt fine because my heart rate it was elevated. It shouldn't be 165 here. I wasn't riding that hard. So I'm aware of that, so I don't pay that much attention to it when it does that. And by the second hour in the ride, it settled down. So that's normal. So usually when I take off a block of time like that, it'll do that. So all I'm trying to do here, I rolled to the front to give Frankie a break. He'd been there for a while. Yeah, Paul gives a shot of Alan, gives a thumbs up. It was Alan's bike that I was working on, fitting the Shimano crankset on there. He went from Rotor to Shimano, and we're doing the same thing to his time trial bike. That's the next project I'm working on for him, to convert it to Shimano full Dura-Ace, because it's got Dura-Ace, it only has rotor cranks. So he's just trying to get back into things, but you know, the way Alan is with his talent, doesn't matter whether he's been riding or not, he can still hang. So right now we're just kind of rolling at the front like I usually am. Just kind of, it's 16 minutes into the ride, we're warming up. The roads are damp, got my mud guards on. Even Alan said, oh, it's easier to follow you, because you know when you follow other people you get the spray on your body, in your face and so forth. That's the only thing about it, but I do love those mud guards. I mean, they don't keep the bike perfectly clean because they're not full mud guards, but they keep you clean, they keep your saddle clean, they keep your back clean, the people following you. So they're perfect for our bikes that are not made to take full fenders. But if you have this kind of weather normally, you might as well, whatever bike you get, you might as well get one that is equipped with full fenders. It's just easier, and then it just extends your riding range. So needless to say, the weather does not stop us. That's why I invest in the appropriate gear. I ended up liking this blue jersey a lot. That's the Rafa Protein thermal jersey. I just wore that with a light summer base layer, the Rafa protein base layer, and it was perfect at 10C or above. It was okay. If it gets much above probably 18C, it might get a little uncomfortable. It is a thermal jersey, but it's one of these jerseys where the range is good enough to where you put a heavy layer, you can go down to freezing. So I'm very pleased with the fit and just all the other functions. I will do a separate review on that. For Raymond wanted to see all the stuff that I got, so that's one of them that I got. But it just ended up being, it's a very functional jersey. I like this so much, I ordered the same jersey in pink before the sale is out. Can take advantage of it. And that's when I stock up on my stuff when they're on sale. I got the like in the blue. It looks good. It was very visible on this day. So right here, we're just kind of easing into it. I'm sitting at the front right now. At this point, I don't know what kind of riding Jose does. I don't know what kind of riding Hugo does. And so it's kind of like we're just kind of getting into, we're just doing our thing and see. And I already told him, I said, we don't treat it like a race, but feel free, whatever pace you want to do, knock yourself out. And whoever wants to go with you would go. And I just told him, you know, I don't know what pace, but I asked him more about his duration and the kind of times. So we're doing Tomball because it'll be about 3 hours or less. So right now we're just kind of warming up, loosening up. So Frankie and I have been at the front rotating, and I'm at the front right now. Shortly after here, I pull off and let somebody else lead. And as usual, our friend, the coach, the wind is out here. You can hear it. It's not cold. It's a mild morning. And in a short while, we have to stop to deal with a mechanical issue on Alan's bike. He had a loose skewer that was causing his brakes to rub when he would stand. And then those guys, Hugo and Frankie, end up taking off those jackets because they're getting warm. That's where I pull off here and I'm rolling back to chat with Paul.
Yeah.
We're talking about the filming, and I told him don't forget to clean the lens, and I think he did. Because when you have a misty morning, it just settles on the lens. So yeah, I think he just cleaned it. So Paul does the filming really well, and so a lot of times during rides, I try to keep my eye on him because depending on what happens at the front, sometimes if it's too sudden, he doesn't have the time to react. I want to make sure the camera is within range to capture things instead of us just going like, you know, bats out of hell and riding away from the camera. But on this ride, everything worked out. Paul did a really good job. There was a point where we get into the Flint Ridge Hills where Jose takes off. And so I stayed behind with Paul because I really wasn't ready to go that hard. I'd been off the lead and my legs were just not ready for that at that moment. So I was kind of listening to my body and just letting our visitors enjoy the route. I'm thrilled that these guys put us on their schedule. They happen to be in the region, and they decided to come visit us. They're going to be here next week too. And Jose is going to get a team kit. I think it's about my size, and I have a kit in my size because we got extra kits the first time. And I think if it fits him, he will get that because he wants to take it back. He said he wants to represent Veloharmony when he gets back to California. So he must have really enjoyed the ride. That's what we try to do, make sure everybody has fun. We don't restrict people. So I told him, I said, whatever pace you feel like doing, knock yourself out. My goal is to keep the group together. That's primarily what I try to do. I keep my eye on everybody, making sure everybody's okay, and then we go when it's time to play. So we're going to take them out to Ridge Lake Shores next week.
Sounds
Alan's wheel is rubbing. As he stood, we heard it. So every time he stands, we hear tweet, tweet. It's rubbing on the carbon. He's got carbon rims and with those special brake pads. There. I asked him to stand. I heard it again. And so he didn't really want to stop. He didn't want to disrupt the group. But I felt I like to investigate noises because they can be a prelude to problems. So I suggested to the guys, let's stop here. I just want to check real quickly where the noise is coming from. If it's just rubbing brakes, we'll just move the brakes. His brakes ended up being loose as well. And later on in the ride, I ended up tightening it. At this point, I did not. I was more focused on what was going on.
Go ahead and hit the brake.
So I adjusted the brakes, and then it was still off. Then I checked his skewer. And Paul didn't move the camera at this point, but I checked his skewer right here. You can see those guys look like they're trying to take off their jackets. You can see Hugo. Yeah, Hugo's pulling his off. It's warm for what they're wearing.
So yeah, you see like right here.
They got 3 layers.
You saw how easily I opened it?
So when I touched his skewer, it just kind of opened very easily. So it was loose. And that will do that. So don't ignore noises on your bike. Find out what's causing it.
It's the noises. Remember Mustard when he fell that time? Oh my God. Mustard said. So that's what that noise was.
Yeah, there was a guy we used to ride with UMC, Steve Mustard. He had a noisy pedal, and he ignored it, and the pedal broke. And I've never seen a pedal break like that at the axle. And he fell. And he wasn't hurt very well, but he had some road rash.
It's like an orchestra.
So, yes, you have to pay attention to noises. Your bike, your car, if they're making noise, get it checked out. Something's off.
Nice and tight.
So I tightened the skewer at first. I made it too tight, and now it's good. And he spins the wheel. Then I adjust the brakes. The brakes ended up being loose, and later on we tightened it. It was just, I don't know what was going on.
Let's pick it up, lift it up.
So I just spin it there, and it's fine. So I tell him to just get on it and put some weight on the pedals, because when your skewer is loose, you won't notice it until you stand, like to sprint or do something. And that's dangerous. The good thing is he had vertical dropouts.
Yep.
The noise went away. So we're good. So at this point, these guys are taking off their kit. You see Frankie's stuffing his in the back, his jacket, and folded down nicely. I didn't notice that. So we just kind of rolled thinking everybody was ready. Paul ended up coming to get us to tell us that these guys are still back there. And that's Jose on the right there.
Yeah, exactly. That was it.
So Jose likes to go hard. So next week what we're going to do is we're going to make sure he's at the front. And if he wants to go hard, that's fine. And what we'll do is we'll just stay with him.
Where are those guys?
And make sure we get the camera to film that. And that's what I told Paul, we did it on this ride. Well, Paul was,
slow down, guys.
You'll see it. He's telling us that the guys are
Frankie and
behind.
Hugo.
So we're waiting for them. But basically I had Paul film the front group and the back group and rotate the camera today. So we're practicing. So
hey man,
because when Jose and them would take off, Paul and I ended up being in the middle. And we stayed to kind of make sure those guys, like Hugo, would see us. Hugo ended up spinning a small gear. And later on I told him, you're going to have to shift up. And then Frankie told him, yeah, I used to ride like that. So Hugo ended up spinning.
Yeah,
I told him,
coming.
If you're spinning and somebody you want to ride with is pulling away, it's time to shift to a higher gear, so he's going to practice that this week. And Hugo's, got talked into cycling, which is great, by his co-worker, Jose. So he's relatively new, but he's learning quickly. He rides really well. He's very safe. He's used to riding around other riders. So that's great. That's a big part of it, just being comfortable around other riders when you're new. So I don't consider him to be new. I didn't see anything he did that was unsafe. So as far as I'm concerned, he's experienced enough. He's just going to have to fine tune a few things. Here he comes. Rides well. And he talked about his saddle being a little high and stuff like that. So
they're here. Let's go.
He said he was bouncing a little bit. He's learning. He's been on the channel. And if his saddle is high, it's very slight. It's not much, because he doesn't look too bad on that bike. I talked to Jose about lowering his stem a bit. He had a spacer under that. I told him I think he can go down. He'd been contemplating that. So at this point, I don't know what kind of pace they like, whatever. So I just decided we're just gonna ride like we normally do. Let them do what they want. And that's what we're doing here.
Working, man. Yeah. Working session, my brother.
Yeah, Paul's having fun. I don't think this ride was long enough for Paul. He likes to go long on Saturday. So next week we're going to make it at least 3 hours. Because we're going to Ridge Lake Shores. It's just, I didn't want to run our guests off. We'll get plenty of chances to get the miles in. But Paul's schedule on Saturday is more flexible. That's when he can really go long. So this part of the road is a little narrow here. So we're using the road. We don't want anybody to pass. It's just not safe. So whenever I come through here, I put my head down a little bit. I picked it up just a little bit. About 20 miles an hour. And all this time I'm looking at my heart rate at 173. It feels like I'm at 153 or something like that. So I just ignored it. The belt was fine. It wasn't a belt. It was just erratic readings. That's the only thing about heart rate. You got to know what your normal readings are. So when they're off, you don't worry about it too much. I was not at 175 like it says there. That's like middle of zone 4 for me. I was like at zone 2 at best. So I knew that. I could tell. So I just ignored it. It does that. That's one of the issues with heart rate. When your training falls off a little bit or you take some time off, it's a little erratic. We get through here. This is the turn circle. It's wet, as you can see. So right there are 2 lanes. When Paul says car back, all you want to do in this situation is stay in your lane. Don't make any changes to change lanes. That's what that's about. Because we're going to use the right lane because we're going to be turning left at the intersection in about probably 80 yards down the road. Look back. There are a lot of cars coming. Paul says car back. We decided to just keep us in this right lane. Because this lane goes to the right and it ends. So we're just going to stay where it ends. Because that's not an official lane, but we're just gonna go through to the light and stay on this side and go left. Because when we turn here anyway, when there are cars there, we use the right side of the lane anyway. So since they're there, we just stay to the right. There's another driver behind here. I don't know why he's sitting back there. The other guy's gone. He's sitting here. I mean, these people act like they're slow sometimes. I really wonder. Instead of going, he's sitting there. What is he waiting on? Then he waits till the road narrows right up here where it narrows. Then he's gonna come around. Look at that. The worst time to come around. The road narrows, now he's coming around. At the same time, we happen to be getting over to the right. Some of these people act like they can't think on their feet. You know, they start giving intelligence tests before they hand out driver's licenses. So you see Jose over to the left, right over there. when you're following people in the wet, that's the issue. You don't want that spray in your face. So that's what's going on. Everybody's staying a little to the side or a little further back or whatever. That's the nice thing about having mud guards. Because even Alan said, man, I love following you. You know, I'm paraphrasing. So yeah, I myself, when I'm not behind somebody with mud guards, I stay to the right or I stay to the left or I stay back out of the spray.
I'm on your side, man.
So if you notice, there are huge gaps in the line because nobody wants to be right on somebody. Now you notice Jose is behind me because I got mud guards on. So he doesn't have to worry about a spray. And after setting those things up, it takes all of 15 to 30 seconds to put it on. You put it on, you just flip the strap that holds it on there. Once it's set up on the bike, it's easy to take on and off. So really, there's no reason to not have it. And I love the fact that they're just very subtle and they kind of have a stealth look. They don't really take away from the bike itself, so I love it. I like getting home and being clean. And it took me all of 15 minutes to clean my bike. Because of those mud guards, I don't have the spray under the saddle where you get all the grit under your saddle. There's a little bit of dirt on the frame, so what I do is I take the water hose, just hose my bike down for like maybe a minute or two, go in the garage, in the mud room, and just run the water with some sink in there, take a wet rag, soapy wet rag, and just wipe the tubes. That's it. And then I use another rag to wipe the chain. 10 minutes, my bike's clean, ready to be used again. It's not a full wash. It just gets the extra stuff that gets on the bike, like the front, the rear gets dirty. And I just clean that out. So it's a lot easier to clean and it keeps you clean. That's the biggest thing. That's what I love about it. Get home, you're not dirty. Your shorts are not full of muck from the road, from the water in the road. That's Hugo back there spinning. So I think he is right. Maybe his saddle is just slightly up, but when you're spinning and stopping like that, that means you're not very comfortable. So he was mentioning that to me at the end of the ride. He's gonna DIY, so he didn't tell me he wanted a fit. So I just kind of told him, use the videos, go down in 3mm increments because he's close. He's just off slightly, if anything. So at this point, Alan is pulling. If you notice, I'm staying to his right because of the spray. And I've been sitting up there for a while. My legs are a little tight. They're still trying to loosen up. You've been off for a number of days. It's almost like your body feels blocked up. That's the phrase we used to use. It's like it needs to wake up. It takes me a little over an hour when I've been off for a while to really feel like I'm a cyclist again. I think it's just better to ride the bike frequently. I mean, I say that, but then sometimes, you guys know life happens. I don't stress over it. After this ride, I got to ride on Sunday on the trainer for a little while. So that was good. I didn't go out. I had too much going on. I really like that jersey. Paul was talking about it. He said, man, I noticed it. And now looking at it on the clips, it really is very visible. I love the fit. I could tell, the way it fit me, I like that. But then just seeing it on the camera, yeah, that's a good jersey. I'm hoping to make that color. They got a short sleeve one, but it's a little pricey now, so I'm waiting. If it goes on sale, it gets cheaper. I try to get one. But right now, my Rafa budget has hit the top. It's like got a few things. Some of them I might send back, but that blue jersey is a keeper. So we're going north and we're going into the wind. Shortly, in a little while, I think Jose comes around and asks me whether this continues. I think it's right here, whether this continues for a few miles. Right here. And I told him, yeah. So, you know, a couple of miles. And so he takes off. And I think Alan goes with him. I think Frankie goes with him. I decided to just hang on the back to see what they're doing for the first climb. I think I roll around Paul here. Yeah, right here. Let's pick up my pace a little bit. I know Paul is there, but I'm not sure where Hugo is. And so we're approaching the first climb. It's about 4.5%, something like that. Right here, we're starting to climb. And they're basically doing an all-out sprint. I just stand up, roll my gear a little bit, because I decide I'm not going to sprint up this climb. So I just sit down here and I let the gap open. Paul's still on my wheel. At this point, Hugo's been gapped. So I'm just rolling my gear. I'm watching them. And so they're still sprinting, and then we're going downhill here right now. So I turn off the power here. I think in a little bit you'll see the gap open. Paul gets a good shot of it. So I figure Alan is there. There's Frankie. One of them would tell him where to turn, because in about a mile there's a right turn. But it ended up that they were going so hard that nobody told the guy to turn, so they went straight and missed the turn. But then we called out to Frankie to tell him. I think Paul did, to tell Frankie, tell him to turn right. And Frankie turned right, but didn't tell them to turn. So yeah, at this point they're still hammering. I'm just riding, and they're probably about maybe 100 yards ahead, and I can't see Hugo here, so I stay behind so he can at least. It helps when you're off the back. I think that's him right there coming up. Yeah, when you're off the back, it helps to have like a rabbit to chase. So I told Paul here, I said, make sure you get the front group and then get the back. Keep rotating the camera. I think this is where I told him. I think shortly after this, he does that. Yeah. I told him get the back for a little bit, then get the front. Yeah. So that people watching can follow what's going on. So they've got a good gap on us. I was a bit surprised at how hard they went. And Frankie got gapped up there, but then we end up calling to him to tell them to turn, because you see the sign that says stop sign up ahead.
Frankie, tell them to turn.
They're not too far, but they missed the turn, so they went straight. And so Frankie turns, but he doesn't tell them to turn. And later on, he tells us he was more concerned about his breathing than anything. So they're right there. There they are. And so they turn around when they realize Alan and Jose turn around. So I'm behind Paul. So they turn around and all of us are coming right there. Yeah, and I think Hugo is back here now.
Come on, Frankie,
yeah,
you gotta
Hugo's
call the shots, bro.
So that was a good effort. He went, so I saw that. I said, okay, that's good. It was good to see what kind of pace he likes to do. And so the biggest thing with this, when this happens in your group, whether it's a hill climb or a corner or whatever, even if it's at a light or whatever, always have areas where once the power's off, you guys can regroup, because it gives the people who fall off the pace the impetus to chase, to keep pedaling, to keep the power on at their level to catch back up, as opposed to you just riding out of sight completely.
Well,
I mean, sometimes that happens, but whenever possible, one person needs to at least stay within range so that the other riders have somebody to chase. So right here, the power's off. We're kind of just rolling. There's an intersection up there. I think I probably should have told Jose just look for the stop sign and turn right. But I figured he had Frankie and Alan with him that they would have mentioned something. So I think Alan wasn't familiar with which route we're going to do today. Because sometimes we do go straight. When we go to Ridge Lake Shore, sometimes we'll go straight. So
You gotta guess, you gotta direct them.
Paul telling Frankie, you got guess, you got to direct them. So Frankie's going to respond.
Not when you have a guess, bro.
You gotta tell these guys to turn, Frankie. Did you forget about the turn?
No, I didn't turn it off yet. I just want.
You want to leave it on?
Yeah, leave it on. Okay, let's go.
So this is a very short light, so as we go through you can see it turn yellow. So what I do is I stay here in front of this oncoming traffic so that, and then I call out to Frankie like hurry up because he's messing around back there, just to make sure everybody got through safely. I don't know what he's doing back there. Oh, okay, he's reaching his pocket for something. So Paul's wearing his rain jacket. He's got his tricolor jersey. Then he's got like a long sleeve base layer. I don't know how he's doing it, but he said he was comfortable. And we all regulate temperature differently. That's another thing to keep in mind. Some people need one layer, some people need two at the same temperature setting that day. So everybody's different. You got to find out what your body needs. You know, so I run hot, so I don't need a whole lot of layers. So I'm just wearing a sleeveless, actually a summer base layer, the Rafa Pro Team base layers for hot weather, and just the thermal jersey, and that was perfect for the whole ride. Parts of the ride I needed to zip it down maybe 2-3 inches, if that. So the jersey was perfect for everything, and it's not always easy to get it right. At this point here, we stop at a light, and then we find out Jose has a slow leak. So we teased him about coming all the way to Texas to have a flat. Right there, you see him squeezing his tire? I'm explaining to him that we're going to take him to Tomball. And then he mentions he's got a slow leak.
Oh, yeah.
So we decide to just pull over right there.
I got two.
Yeah, we just pull over to the side to deal with it. So I reach in my patch kit and take out my gloves. I have those nitrile gloves that I carry. Keeps the dirt off your hands. So give Paul my bike.
When it's slow like that, a lot of times it might be the valve.
I was telling him it might be the valve, because usually when it's slow, but he ended up actually having 2 holes in the tube. Paul actually spotted it. We thought there was a slow because I pumped it up first, thinking that it was just something that maybe he didn't pump up that morning. So I handed him nitrile gloves. It keeps your hands clean when you're working on the bike. And that's another thing we do. We don't leave anybody stranded. If you're with us and you have a flat, we stop. You know, even if we don't help you and we just stand, we might hold your bike or something, but we stop and get it fixed, and then we move as a group. So if you're going to be left behind, it's going to be on the road when the hammer's down. It's not going to be because of a flat. I think it's just really cool. I mean, not all groups do that. It depends on the kind of group you work with. We start out together, we finish together. So even when there are gaps, we'll ride hard for a while, and then we'll turn off the power and wait. He's got those what I call lawyer tabs on his fork, so you got to loosen the skewer. I was telling him that I filed mine off when I bought my frame. The gentleman who made my blue frame actually asked me if I wanted him to remove that before they painted the fork, and he filed that off. And the gentleman that did the titanium frame, they just didn't even put one on. So he must have had that fouled up as well. I hate them. It's not necessary.
I got grandkids.
They're basically saying you're not smart enough to make sure your skewers are tight. So this is where I didn't realize the camera was on all this time. I think after a while, it's just to the Paul to turn it off.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that he had it on. So I'm putting air in there because we think maybe because he didn't air up. Because when I asked him, he said he didn't air up that morning. Right after we put more air in it, then Paul actually spots the leaks. They're like 2 holes. And he ended up having a bunch of stuff in his tire, little things in there. It's a Vittoria Evo. You know, they're pretty good tires. 25 millimeter tires. So, it's one of those things.
Hey, Jose, you want a bar, man? I got that.
It's hard, but I don't know if it's whole. Let's see.
So we got air in it, and then Paul spots
It's harder.
the leak.
Let's just monitor for now and see. See a hole there, but that's just a cut. I don't see anything.
That's when I begin to notice the cuts and holes. I thought, you got your money's worth out of these tires. It'll be time to invest in a new pair, get some with more tread on it. The Victorias are good rolling tires.
It will get soft right away.
That's the good thing about black leggings. I just wipe my hands on them.
Hey, look, there is a leak
Paul
right there.
spotted
man.
them.
Right here.
Yeah, you got a leak.
Right there.
You got a leak. You know what? You got other things in this tire. Look at that.
Yeah, I see other stuff in the tire.
Yeah, you got a leak.
Yeah. I spotted it right away, man. There is 2 of them, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Yeah, there is one
Yeah,
right there.
right there.
Right there. I can
Right
see
here
it.
and there.
Without glasses, man, I'm doing good.
The water on the road was basically beating up, bubbling on the tire.
Yeah.
The tires were wet. And Paul basically spotted it.
You gotta open it up, take it out.
There's something in the tire. Let's open this so we can get those out. You got
Yeah, good thing you guys didn't put a new tube in there.
So he's got 2 holes in there. So what we do is we take it apart. We take the tire off. Jose takes it off the rim, and we check inside to make sure there's nothing in there. You know.
Okay.
So after sorting out the flat, we resume the ride.
Okay, boys, I gotta work.
I think that's Alan's up there. Then Jose moves up, and then Hugo. Slip behind Hugo here. So I decided to just kind of sit in, let my body kind of wake up. My heart rate is settling now, giving reasonable readings. I decided to just sit in and let the boys do what they want to do. Just kind of keep my eye on everything. I think Frankie is behind Paul. Paul's behind me here with the camera. And Alan's leading Jose, or is Frankie up there? Oh, Frankie's up there. I think he's behind Alan. I thought he was behind. He's behind Alan, and then Jose is behind Frankie, and then Hugo's up there. Paul and I are bringing up the rear. I put it in a big gear here and just kind of stand, trying to just get my body to wake up. This is a slight grade. It may not register. It's less than 1%. It's probably why. But it's a grade. So Alan's been sitting there for a while. And all I'm doing here is basically trying to get my body to wake up. The effort doesn't feel hard, but I feel blocked up. This is one of those things that it's a little over an hour, so about here I should start loosening up a bit. I stayed to one side because some parts of the road is wetter than other parts. I definitely don't want that spray on there. I'm not that concerned about the craft per se. So we're going into the wind. This is a decent pace. Alan's been sitting there for a while. Pace line's fairly tight. Roads are drying slightly. Overnight rains. That's what gets you dirty. It's not the rain, it's the water off your wheels. This is Kirkendall Road here.
Yeah, I'm dressed for the occasion, guys.
Even though it says 11C, it felt cooler right here. We're further north. That's what we're talking about. Off that slight downhill. There are a few rollers here. Where it goes left is a slight grade. Right here the pace picks up just a little bit. Right here the road goes up a bit. You can see it. Not by much. Clears the stop sign, we roll through. And what I begin to notice here is there's a gap opening between Hugo and Jose. I'm trying to see if Jose will close the gap, but he's still spinning the same gear. And he's really not making a lot of progress. I'm not sure what's going on with Frankie here. He's just taking a break back there. He's on his bars, so that's probably why. So he probably wanted to just get on the bars for a little bit. So I go around Hugo here as we approach this intersection because the gap just stayed the same. So I just rolled up to Jose's wheel. So whenever the ride reaches the point like this where things are steady, kind of rolling along, it's a good chance to get a drink, reach in your pocket if you need to get something to eat. I mean, I started eating early in the ride. I brought banana bread. I went and ate all of that. I also had 2 gels. So you use these opportunities to top off your fuel. Make sure you have enough fluid so that when things pick up, you'll be ready. That's the key. Right here, we're just kind of rolling along. Nothing much is going on. And all I'm doing is I'm staying out of the spray, staying slightly to the left of Jose. I don't want to follow directly behind him. The roads are drying. The ball comes around to get a different shot. I think he goes to the front. I think Alan follows him. Stand up to kind of keep my rhythm, stretch a little bit, change the position my muscles been working in. This is an incline. It may not register, but it is. So right there, Alan goes, Jose goes. I'm basically keeping my effort steady. That takes the lead. Check here, the stop sign's clear. Has 1% here. It's a slight drag, nothing too significant. With the wind blowing like it is, it kind of makes it a little harder, even though these rollers are not significant. Any kind of a grade, and then you have the wind. Yeah, you're gonna have to work. You have to put down some power. So we're doing about 33 kilometers an hour. So that's a good effort. You can see the pace where it says 150 per kilometer. That's a good indication that we're riding at a good clip. So I let them know that we're gonna be turning left up here at the intersection. So Alan moves in the left lane. So does Jose. The four-way stop sign. We get there first. That Jeep is coming up. So Alan goes ahead and starts to go. The Jeep waits. The guy at the Jeep waits. We turn. We let Alan know that car's back because this guy in the Jeep is coming by. So we use the edge of the road. It's a little narrow. I noticed that Frankie was riding much better. Frankie has been honing up on his training, and he looked really good on this ride. He was riding really well. So it was really good to see his improvement. Hear the wind. So we turn right here. This is Terramont Parkway. And after we turn, Alan pulls off the front and Jose takes the lead. And it's about a 1%er, maybe between 1 and 2. And Jose proceeds to put down the power. He starts to go hard. I rode up to him right here. You can see the gaps already opening back to Frankie and Hugo. I think Alan may have been taken by surprise there, but he'll ride back. He'll ride back to us. And that's the thing, when somebody goes hard, don't feel like you have to immediately expend a whole lot of energy. You can peg them back by just going steady and increasing your effort more gradually than they did. Let them expend the energy for those instant bursts. Save yours for when you decide to go. Sometimes it's okay to let the gap open and then claw your way back. And you actually expend less energy that way sometimes. Because unless you have a real reason for immediately closing the gap, it's not a big deal. So we end up riding hard here to the point where down the road we end up gapping Hugo, and then Alan will ride up to let us know that you guys need to slow down because we've got somebody back there that's off the pace. At this point I'm not aware of that. I'm just sitting on Jose's wheel, and what I'm doing here is I'm using a larger gear than I would normally use, and I'm just sitting there basically taking it easy for me. I'm just gonna roll. And you can see back there, Hugo's back there. There's a gap. I'm not aware of it at this point. So I increase my gearing. I'm probably in a 17 or something like that. And keep my cadence like in the 80s. But at this point I'm feeling pretty good. My body has kind of settled. a stop sign up here, and this car passes and stops. So I tell Jose to be careful. He goes and it's clear. It's a three-way stop sign. I think this is where Alan comes and let us know that we need to back off.
I think we dropped Hugo.
So here we turn off the power. We start to soft pedal. I don't even see Hugo there. I think it's quite a distance. That's why Alan came up to let us know. It didn't seem that hard, but I think what was going on is with Hugo spinning.
Hugo.
Yeah, I was asking Paul.
That's you, Gio.
I don't know what Frankie said. Oh yeah, Frankie said it wasn't him this time. It wasn't him that got dropped.
Frankie, did you drop the mic again?
He said it's not. It wasn't me. Messing around.
Oh,
But
man.
Hugo just needs to work on his strength. We talked about it.
Is he coming?
Yeah, there he is. So I was asking Frankie, it wasn't you that fell off the pace, or it wasn't you that dropped it.
550! Oh man, Frankie.
So with the wind and the rollers, I spend most of my time on the tops or on the hoods. Because in this area here, you're up or down, and then the wind.
Man, I was just
Once the
getting
speed
warmed
really
up.
picks up. I don't get in the drops too frequently. In the rollers, I like to sit up and keep my chest open to breathe. You breathe easy. So he goes back. So we resume.
What?
Three outfits.
Yeah, I'm comfortable, man. I'm comfortable. Oh yeah. You're good. All right, you go, man. Okay, man.
Far off on the fit. I mean, he said his saddle feels high, but if that, it might be 2-3 millimeters off, if that. It's not significant. He's very close. You see how visible that blue is? They call it aquamarine. It's a beautiful blue color. Got the helmet with the same color, but the helmet, the color's muted. It's not as bright as it does look in the picture. But it's a keeper. The helmet fits my head really well. Hugo's shoulders rock a little bit.
That didn't surprise
I'm
me.
not sure what we're talking about here. You see his body, see his upper body rocking like that? It's like he's searching for power or something. Usually what happens.
False smile. said I was on your side.
Okay. Sun can come up. Feel it. What's the percentage of the battery?
Smile, boys.
Looks good.
I was checking the battery there on the camera to make sure we had enough, just to decide when we would change it. We were running it so much today, I figured we'd need to swap it and carry a spare.
Oh yeah.
Right here, as we go through this intersection, Frankie takes off. Jose jumps on him. And by the time we realize it, there's a gap. So I'm back here, I think, with Hugo and Alan. And this is Paul in between. We're behind Paul. So I decide, okay, let's play. I'll pull the boys back to these guys. I think shortly Paul turns the camera around to pick us up. Right there. So I don't really know how that gap developed. So by the time we came around Hugo, I told him to get on. But it looks like he's already getting gapped on our chase. Alan and I chasing up.
Ah, you guys.
I don't know what he told Paul there, but I gradually closed the gap. I didn't do anything too drastic, so I was hoping Hugo would be able to hang on. You know, he's relatively new to the sport, so we close the gap here and just gonna sit in to see. We're gonna be turning soon, letting them know we're turning right. Alan goes to the front. I tell him to be careful because there are bricks in the turn and they're shiny, and since it's wet they can be slippery. I told him just be careful. Tell everybody to watch the bricks. That's what Paul said. You better tell Alan because Alan's going ahead. Those are the bricks right there. You just don't want to lean too much. So I took a wide turn. You can see I went close to the curb to keep the bike as upright as possible. So right here, these guys, Jose starts to chase Alan down. I go around Frankie and then I look back to see where everybody else is. Paul comes around Frankie, where I look back to see what they're doing. I don't plan on expending any energy to get up to these guys. We've got a stop sign and a light coming up, so we've got a good regrouping spot. So I said let them play. I sit back here to see because Hugo had already been gapped when we chased back to those guys. So after the turn, I know there's been a bigger gap. So Paul's up here with the camera behind these guys. I'm behind Paul at this point, just to give those guys something to ride towards. I'm there with Frankie back there. We were looking back for Hugo. At that point, we couldn't see him very well. And I think Paul may have mentioned to these guys to soft pedal or something, but you know, it didn't matter. There's a light up there. We can regroup there. I just stayed back to make sure Hugo had company, didn't get too far behind on his own. I mean, you know, he's a guest, and I don't think he knows the route. But Alan up there is sprinting up the road because Jose had mentioned to Alan to soft pedal because Paul suggested it, but Alan just felt like sprinting, so he went, and that's fine. Everybody needs to have fun. So I was not aware of all of this until I saw the clip. Because all I'm doing back there is making sure that Hugo sees Frankie and I so he can ride towards us. It's later in the ride, and I will point that out when I tell Hugo, you gotta try something different. You gotta use a harder gear. This is off of May Valley. Going to 2978. There's a light up there. So this is the front group. At this point I'm behind. At this point I'm behind. So once I come up here, I go ahead and push the button, the pedestrian cross button, which makes the light change when there are no cars.
Looks like you're in a hurry to get back.
Yeah, I think Alan said he felt like sprinting, which is fine. So there's Hugo there. There's Frankie. I think I'm at the corner of pushing. Yeah, push the button so that the light will change. There's no cars behind us.
Okay, man.
If you don't do that, you end up sitting here.
I guess.
I don't want to play.
You always want to play, Frank.
Oh yeah, I always want to play.
So we're heading south here towards Tomball. I'm telling Frankie that we're going to go straight on this highway. We have several options that we use depending on what's going on. But since it's so wet, I don't want to go right. That road is a little slippery. It's smooth asphalt. So I told Frankie, let's go straight. Stay on the highway and take the bypass of 2978. It's nice, it's scenic. And there's a lot of sand that they've put out here because we had a freeze last week in the Houston area. So a lot of these bridges have sand on them. Sanded trucks. That's what they use down here. We don't use salt. You can see all the sand. There's a lot of sand on this shoulder. That's what you're hearing. Close to the white line is clean, but it's not that bad on this one. It's worse further down, and we end up using the main lanes when we get there. So we go through this light here. I think Frankie's leading at this point. This is Hugo here. I was really thrilled these guys came all the way from LA to ride with us. I know they didn't just come to ride with us. They had business in the area, but they brought their bikes and made it a point to let us know a month in advance that they were going to hook up with us. And thankfully they're going to be here for 2 of our rides. So next week they should be back. So it's great. So I guess they enjoy the ride so much they want to join us. I mean, I see a lot of comments about I'd like to come ride with you from different people, but I guess there's something about the ride people enjoy. I mean, it looks like we're having fun, and that's what it's about. So I'm really thrilled that they wanted to come out and join us. So it was great having them. So I'm looking forward to them coming back next week. So whatever we're doing is working. We're going to keep the ride fun, because I think that's what brought them out here. So you can see Hugo's gear. I mean, he's on the big chainring and he's back. I don't know if he has a 50 or whatever he has on there. It might be a 50. But you can see his cadence is up, but then he'll pedal, stop. So maybe he's right. Maybe his saddle's just slightly high. Because when it's that way, sometimes you don't want to keep pedaling too much. And then he says he was rocking a little bit at high cadences. And so could be maybe he's not used to this cadence. We talked about it, or it could be the saddle just a little bit. So he's gonna tweak it. You know, he's doing a DIY right now, so hopefully he'll be able to get it there. And he's close. And it's the small changes that make the big differences when it comes to your fit. So I'm behind Frankie up there right now. You can see how that blue just pops. Almost like the alter ego to chartreuse. I prefer the blue to chartreuse. Chartreuse is very bright. It's not my cup of tea. So I pulled through, just keeping the speed steady. We're going, actually, I think the wind, I am not sure if it's coming, I think it's from the east, from our left. But it's pretty stiff. You can hear it. It's relatively flat here. We're not too much of a grade. I'm trying to keep the ride scenic for our guests. So we're on this highway just long enough to get us to a nice little bypass coming up. So in a little while, look behind here. We're getting close to the turn, so I'm checking early. There, I look back. There's some debris on the right. I'm just letting people know. And so I look back, and then everybody knows that we're turning. So Paul says clear.
Watch out.
And I move over. So I look back, it's clear. So we have cars coming the other way. And you notice we check, we get in there before we turn, we check again. Because sometimes these cars appear out of nowhere. So just double, triple check. Check through your turn. Check before you make the turn. Check when you get in there after you're about to execute the turn. Check again. Sometimes these cars are moving so fast they surprise you. So we check until we get through the turn and finish it.
Sounds like Alan's brake is rubbing again.
Yeah, so right here we hear Alan brakes rubbing again, and it ends up being that the brake caliper itself is not tight in the frame. So Alan ends up making a joke later. He says, did you do this on purpose? Because I had worked on this bike. I mean, I don't remember messing with the brakes or anything, but that was the bike where I put the Durace on there. So I told him to take this driveway. We'll use that driveway. But it ends up being that his caliper was loose. So I have a tool that I carry, and we use that and tighten it up and proceeded with the ride. We also use this opportunity to put a fresh battery in the camera. So we fixed that. We got Allen brakes nice and tight. It was good. The caliper was loose, so didn't take much to move the brake. So we continue to ride here. So we're headed on this bypass that will take us back to Farm Road 2978. It's called Huss-Smith Crowville Road. This is a nice little turn circle. Just more interesting than riding on the main highway. It's quieter. It's always quiet back here. The wind's coming from the east, which is on our left. It's a slight downhill here. It says -4. Levels off pretty quickly. Holding the tempo at the front. It's one of those days where there's a fine line between whether you cover your legs or not. I prefer to just cover up because depending on where we ride, when we were in the woodlands it was cooler. I'd much rather cover my knees. I don't want to have any joint problems later. When there's a doubt, I cover up. Plus, most of the ride, it didn't go It says 12C right now, but it felt more like 10. Paul's getting a nice angle shot. He's kind of riding tempo. That blue kind of grew on me. I'm glad it turned out like it did because I was a little leery about getting it. Paul and I looked at it and he said, I think it'll be fine. And the more I talked about it, the more attractive it looked. So it all worked out. I have not owned a jersey that color ever before. So that was a first. I think Hugo could lower his saddle a bit. His knee accelerates on the downswing. Look how his leg is extended at the bottom there. Yeah, he needs more of a bend. So that thing needs to come down just a tad. So little adjustments that make the difference. And you got to keep making the adjustments until you're not having any problems. The road is clear, and so over here I told him we're going to use the lane because it's really rough on the right. There's not a whole lot of traffic. I just told him let's use the lane. And then it turns out that right after this intersection, I move over to the right because it's a wide shoulder. But then it turns out that the sanding for the freeze is really heavy on this bridge. And so I moved back. Shortly, I moved back into the lane. I check and then I move back and I wave them over. Because look at all this stuff. I didn't want us to ride in that. Just chunks, more like little pebbles than sand. They really get a little crazy on these bridges. The bridges are the first things to freeze because the airflow. You don't have the warmth from the earth under like the regular roads. So you know, at least the drivers understood. We had to use the lane here because it's just a mess. Hopefully they'll get the sweepers out here. Sometimes it takes a while for them to get out there and sweep this stuff. And then at the end of this bridge, there was just a big chunk of part of the pavement that's missing. So I stand up right there and let everybody know. So we all got through okay. Just the little touches there, just blending that pavement better would make a difference. Even in a car, you'll feel that. We're off the bridge here, so we got a nice wide shoulder here. Heading towards the overpass is coming up. The wind has picked up from the east. It's really blowing. Frankie's telling Jose about the overpass that's up ahead. It's a nice long overpass. Gets up to that 5%. There's a rock there, I point that out. Those can cause flats. If you hit them square on with your weight on the bike, they can give you a pinch flat. Paul's letting me know that it's okay for me to get in. He's the last guy. That's what that was about. Just kind of roll in front. You notice that Hugo is pedaling and then stopping very frequently. That's a clear sign that something's up with the fit. And then his leg is fully extended at the bottom of the stroke. So yeah, he needs to drop that saddle. Be able to generate more power. Bring it down and move it back a little bit.
Jose, that bridge look familiar there on the field?
Alan leads us up this climb, and I decided to just hold tempo here. I stand up here to keep my gear rolling. I'm probably in like a 53-22 or something like that. You see the rocks that they put out there with the sanding they did. So I'm staying close to the white lines, a little cleaner. I'm just keeping the tempo the same, keep the group together. Once I hit the crest, sat down and just kept the gear rolling. Now because it's wet, you can watch how I take this corner. I'm not carrying a whole lot of speed, but watch my arc. My circle is smooth. I go out and keep it nice and rounded. Nothing drastic. So when it's wet like that, that's kind of how you want to do everything smoothly. There's those sudden turns that can affect
This is a full-time job.
So at this point, Frankie and Hugo are further back. So as we get to this intersection, I kind of turn right and loop around it. And Alan is about to stop. And then I told him that, nah, we need to just keep rolling. He was going to stop right there. So I told him, let's keep going.
Yeah.
They're not that far back, but usually when people fall off on that bridge, that's a good regrouping spot. They're there. There they are.
Over here.
Yeah. Paul says all
Over
here.
here.
And so at this point, we get the group together and we roll through. And we cut the filming here and then resume the filming when we get past 249 into Lone Star College. This is the back way into the park.
You weren't going that hard. Waiting for perfect weather, then when perfect weather comes, you're going slow. So, you get it.
So we're talking about if you don't ride when the weather is challenging, when beautiful weather comes,
If you have to
you're going slow.
unclip, it's a little bit tight if you're not used to.
I was suggesting that people unclip if they're not comfortable, but
There we
everybody
go.
kind of rode through without having to unclip. That was good. Good bike handlers. I'm behind Paul here. I think I'm with Alan.
Left turn.
We're letting them know to turn left here.
Left.
Actually, I think I have the camera. Paul's up there. Yeah. Paul's on the left up there. We turn, and this is actually a grade when you turn.
He's
Just
chasing
3 or
something.
4%. Some
bug
dog
or
was
something.
running around chasing like, butterflies or something.
It's on, buddy.
So I roll up to Jose to explain to him about the climb and the park that's coming up, just to kind of give him a lay of the land. So I explained to him it's about 5 to 6%. So as soon as we hit here, he decides to just put the hammer down. So I decide I'm just going to sit on this wheel. So right here we start going. He takes off. I didn't shift. I just kicked up my cadence. as the hill bites, Alan comes on the left, and he's basically sprinting. He's in a small gear, but then he cramps up right there. He stops, and he said his leg was cramping. So when I looked up, so Paul came around. I got behind Paul, and then I looked back for Frankie and Hugo, and they're chatting back there. So I decided I'm gonna ride back up to these guys. So they have a little bit of a gap on me at this point. Paul didn't turn the camera around because they were going hard, and he was focusing on just putting out the power. By this point, the hill's over. You can see the power's off, and I'm behind Paul. So I'm riding up to them after seeing that those other two guys were not really trying to ride with us. They were having a conversation. See Alan shake his leg there? Bit of a cramp. Because he basically sprinted up that hill. Because we were going hard and he came past in a smaller gear. So that was basically like a sprint up that climb, one which I was not expecting. And so at this point, my throttle bodies are open. I decided we're just going to ride this part. But then when we come in here, I didn't notice it before, but as we go through this stop sign, I think there were officers parked in here. I found out later, and then you will hear Paul ask, because at the top of this climb, I went around these guys. So when this climb kicked in, I think that's the officer sitting up there in that vehicle. Right up there. Right up there. So I came around these guys right here. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, constable. Yeah, that's the officer. So I came around them there, and then Alan tells me, make sure you stop for the stop sign. Alan's on the left. He said that to me, and so I nodded my head. I wasn't sure why he wanted me to stop at the time, but then Paul explained it later. But right here, you will hear Paul ask whether we saw the officers. So I stopped.
Okay?
Yes.
I'm okay, but these guys, remember? Oh.
Did you see the police over there?
You hear Paul asking whether we saw the police over there. So that's why Alan wanted to make sure we stopped so we didn't get pulled over. Because usually they will pull you over and lecture you, basically, when you do something that obvious, I guess. This happened to us before in the past. So I thought we were slowing down for Frankie and them, and then I explained to Alan that those guys are doing their own thing, and they're not really riding with it. So at this point, the power's off, and I think they get a chance to catch back up.
No, on the other side.
That's what Paul's talking about, where the officers were. So I didn't have a clue what they were talking about at the time in the park. As my engine was on now, my valves were open, I was ready to ride. So I keep looking back on what's going on, but these guys were basically concerned about those officers because we had blown through the first stop sign before we got up to them. I like the back of this park. It's almost like 10%, and it gets there in a hurry. I think I see Hugo back there, so they're back. But we ended up after this point just riding the hills back here. There weren't any other attacks. I guess that sprint took everything, the impetus out of the group, I guess. So we rolled through here, and I'm kind of leading the way, just making sure there's a truck up there, and there's a speed bump in that corner before you get up to the climb. So I'm watching that guy. There's a dip in the road there, like a ripple, and I always point that out because it's uncomfortable to go over it. And I let them know to be careful with this guy because I know he has to stop for the speed bump. And it robs all your momentum, so I'm hoping that he gets over it quickly. And thankfully he does. So he gets over the speed bump so we can still roll the some kind of momentum. And then he goes into the middle of the lane there on the left. He stops there. So he's out of the way, so that's cool. So as I stand to climb here, my rear wheel started slipping, so I moved my body back more to put more weight on the rear wheel because the road is slippery. I was actually expecting somebody to make a move or Jose to launch an attack or something, but nobody did, so I just kept riding. I love this climb back here. It's tight, short, steep. It bites real quickly. And then it continues. So I was surprised nobody came around, and I just continued to ride. You see the line I take here, nice and smooth. That's the key. I didn't lean the bike over much. When it's wet like that, you have to do that. You don't want to get too aggressive. This is about a 2 to 3.5%, maybe 4% climb, and it's a good length. It's one of these climbs where you want to be conservative when you start and kind of ride into it. Because if you get in too big a gear and your legs tighten up, you don't get much of a respite. Because right here it's still digging it. And at this point in the ride, my legs have finally awakened. It's like I feel like a cyclist again. I had too many days off. I'll get back to my consistent plan. There's too much was going on this week. I'm feeling like my old self again. I just continue to ride. Then Paul's right behind me. So we just rode it civilized. It stays anywhere between 1 to 3%. See how full my pockets are? Those pockets in this jersey are designed to stretch. I was even able to put the gimbal in there when we weren't filming, in the pocket where you see the jacket sticking up, and the gimbal got in that same pocket. So I was really, I'm just very pleased with the jersey. They did a good job. And then the side, you can see the different fabric on the side. That's for ventilation. So right here, Alan takes off a little bit. When you turn left, it kicks up to like 3%. All I do is just spin the gear I'm in. I really didn't shift or anything. I just turned it a little faster. I think I'm in the low 80s or something. I think I stand a bit here just to change my rhythm. As you leave the park, it bites. You can see it even says 5 or 6%. And there's a car coming. It kind of robbed our rhythm right there. But the store we're stopping at is right up the road on the left, that beige building on the left. It's a Phillips 66. So we just stopped here for a few minutes. Got some Gatorade. Alan got us some water. Frankie got Gatorade. after our refill, we're on the FM 2920 headed east. I had just turned on the camera. I was fiddling with it, so I'm a little behind here. And I'll go ahead and ride back up to the pace line. We're headed directly into the wind. The wind is coming from the left and in our face. There's a bump over there everybody's trying to avoid. Get to the light timely, it's green, we rolled through, and pretty much at this point, this road is very exposed, and it being as windy as it is, it says 14C. It didn't feel that warm to me anyway, but it was just a very comfortable day. It's not a very cold day. So Alan pulled off the front here, I rolled through, and I'm still doing the filming, so I'm moving up. Try to get a good shot here. So I'm staying to the left and keeping the camera on the left to kind of get a view of the front as much as possible without just picking up the person in front of me. And I'm adjusting the angle of the camera because as I move it around, it seems to be kind of low. Just want to make sure we're getting a good frame of the picture. Now you can see here, Hugo is pulling out the line, and he's having challenges with the pace. Just from watching him, I think his position needs a little tweak. So right here, I ride up behind Jose because you know there's a good amount of wind, and we're doing about 33 to 35 kilometers an hour, probably around 21, 22. This is a good pace into this wind. You can see the wind over Paul's rain jacket there. So I'm staying on Jose's left here, but I'm keeping my eye on Hugo back there because he's off the pace a bit. So Alan rolls on the right here. The light will change right now, right there. So even though we backed off the power a bit, Hugo is still off the pace. When he pulled out the line, it was because he was having challenges with the pace. So in a short while, I decide to ride up, even though it's difficult. I ride up and give Paul the camera, and then I drift back to help Hugo. And that's where I went ahead and told him, try something different. Shift up to a harder gear and try to use your strength. So I think right around here, yeah, I move up and I tell Paul what my plan is. I let him know I'm going back to get him. So I just kind of drift back. I back off the power right there. I'm looking for him. He's a bit further back. I guess Paul drifts behind these guys too. Yeah, Paul's right in the middle of us. So I tell Hugo, I said, try something different. Shift up to a harder car. But I think he's got a lot going on. I believe that his fit needs to be tweaked, and so he can generate more power. Because sitting high, you're using fewer muscles. So Frankie's drifting off those guys' pace. They're riding off, and I'm gonna bring Hugo. My goal is to just bring Hugo back, so he doesn't have to ride this stretch alone. Because it's very windy and it's exposed. It's not a whole lot of fun riding it by yourself. You end up going slower and slower after you get dropped. You can see they're pulling away from Paul. I'm riding up to Paul. We're behind. That's my light back there. So I've got Hugo and Frankie. Frankie drifted back as well. I just told Hugo to stay on my wheel and try to use a harder gear. So right there we pick up Frankie. And I told him to come on, Frankie, let's go. They're both behind me. I'm trying to keep it around 30 kilometers an hour. It's about 18 miles an hour into the wind because Hugo is having problems at 33, 34. So you don't want to use the same pace that the person was having a challenge with to try to bring them in. You drop it just a bit. So you can see he's sitting on my side. I don't know if that's necessarily the best spot for him. Probably should have been on the other side. So we get up to Paul, and I just sit on Paul's wheel because Paul is sitting there pulling, and his speed is just what these guys need. This is what they need to ride at. Right about here is what Hugo's having no trouble holding. I get on Paul's wheel. I kept my glasses off the whole day because with the mist, it was gonna be a mess. So I just kept it in the back of my head. But the wind ended up beating your face and your eyes, and you spend a lot of time squinting, so your skin gets pounded. So these guys are at this light. We catch up to them. So Paul got really close to Alan on that stop. I don't know if you guys know that the camera was real close. He said his rear wheel slipped or something. But I just noticed that he had gotten pretty close when he stopped. That's why I asked him what was wrong. So I'm still keeping my eye out for Hugo and Frankie. This is Paul behind Jose. I'm behind Paul. We got another light about maybe 100 yards up the road. You can see how the middle of Jose's pants and his jersey, his jacket is dirty. That's that thing. That's that rooster tail from the road. And then you get home and your shorts, there's this black dirt that's on your short from all that grit. So I sped it up here as we stopped because it was a good wait. Telling Paul to watch that bucket because I don't know if he saw that or not. It was in his line. Not sure where that came from. So on this stretch, Jose just sits at the front. And he's doing between 33 to 35 kilometers an hour. And Hugo and Frankie have no interest in that pace. So I'm sitting behind Paul. Paul's here with the camera behind Alan. And we're riding, and the whole time I'm kind of looking back from time to time to make sure like we get through that light, make sure they got through the light okay. And I edited the pull here because all we were doing is just riding in the pace line. We end up just putting a significant gap on Frankie and Hugo because they were probably just chatting, you know. They seemed to hit it off right off the bat. They were just talking, but I wanted to make sure that everybody got in safely and everything. So we go about another 200 yards or so, and then I suggest that we back off before we turn, so they can know where we've gone, because we have several options here. We can go straight, we can turn right, and this time we went straight, so I wanted to make sure they knew what we were doing. That's what Paul's asking, if we're going straight. Sometimes we go right. Today we're going to go straight. We've had a lot of delays with mechanicals and all the stops that we made. So we wanted to just, I was telling them here I'm going to wait for those guys. And Jose did not hear me, did not hear us. He kept riding. As we go through this intersection, I look back and I cannot see those guys. So Jose is still riding, thinking we're on his wheel, and so he didn't look behind. Yeah, we can't even see those guys. So I decided it's a good point to kind of wait and allow them to regroup. So I was gonna ride up to Jose to let him know I was waiting, and then Alan takes off. So I decided I'm not gonna waste my energy. I'm just gonna. I told Alan, just let him know that we're gonna wait for those guys. So Alan takes off there. I decided I'm just gonna turn off the power. Point in me expending the energy. So Alan rides up there and tells Jose that we're waiting, and I just soft pedal and wait for Paul here. I wanted to make sure those guys did not turn right back there, or just to make sure everybody got in together. So they were quite a ways back. I did some edits here just to keep things kind of moving along. So we ended up waiting for them for a bit. This is why Paul noticed there was some strange symbol on the camera. It looked like a tool.
I never seen this symbol.
Yeah, there's something popped up on the camera, almost like a tool or something.
Yeah, we're gonna turn here.
So Alan's asking if we're turning. I told him, yeah, we're gonna turn.
We're gonna turn here.
I can't even see them. I'm not sure why it says 2.
So I turned the camera off and turn it back on.
Turn it back on.
Yeah, the tool.
Something must have happened. We got bumped or something. Just film those guys coming.
Okay.
I couldn't see them, so.
I think we finally can see them now. They're rolling up. So we stop here by the side of the road, wait till the traffic clears, and then we get in the middle and go across and kind of roll back to the start. So this is pretty much what we did on Saturday. Hope you guys got a chance to get out there. Stay tuned for the epilogue and see how we cool down as we go back to the cars. We're telling Frankie to move away from the white line, because when you're stopped, you're not as visible. So I didn't like he was standing fairly close to the white line. So we're waiting for the traffic to get a gap in it so we can get across here. We don't want to sit at that intersection. The light doesn't change for the lanes. So we're using the middle turn lanes here. And all you want to do is, you don't want to ride in this. You want to just be as stationary as possible and turn. That's the legal use of this lane. So once there's a break, we turn. And we're just going to go straight by. Let this driver know we're going straight. And we're going to go behind the Discount Tire. There's a street called TC Jester on the right there. We just didn't want to use that intersection. You end up sitting in the middle of the road. I don't care to do that. But at this point, we just kind of cool down. There's a blind corner coming up, so I let the guys know. Just, you know, I said, let me check the corner. And there are cars when we get to the corner, so I let them know that we have to stop. because there's a wall on the left, so you can't see it all and see where that car came from. So I go ahead and I check and I tell them we're stopping. Car on the right. And I think there was a car on the left as well. Yep. So it's clear. Now we can go.
We got this. You're gonna have to wait.
So Paul said we got this. He's gonna have to wait because, yeah, there's nowhere for us to go. We're using the whole lane,
Yeah.
and so Alan's been through here before. Of course, these guys haven't because they're visiting. But we just kind of cut through here. It's quiet. You can spin down
Car.
and kind of end the ride on a leisurely pace. We took this direct route back to the start because we spent a lot more time out than we planned for the distance we covered, because we had quite a few stops more than normal on this particular ride today. It was a bit unusual. We had a lot of little hiccups with the flat and the mechanical with Alan's bike and so forth. So we just decided to bring things in at a reasonable time. It's just a little after 11, which was good. Our actual riding time was a little under 3 hours. It was okay. It wasn't that bad. Just the moving time. 3 hours. So when you do your rides, you always want to give yourself a chance, especially if you parked at the start. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes. Spin a small gear. Don't ride hard with the group to the cars. Let them go. Especially if you're going to sit in the car. Because some of the guys that are riding hard to the start probably rode to the ride. So they'll get to spin home. So if you drove there, give yourself a few minutes to spin down. A lot of rides, the final sprint and so forth is not very close to the end of the route, so you have that opportunity.
Yeah, watch out. Oh, you're talking about Alan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alan is powerful.
Oh, yeah. Is he Italian?
Huh?
Is he Italian?
No, he's from Lebanon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, Frankie's talking about Alan. Alan's got an Italian flag in that jersey. It was a very nice jersey. I like the colorways. It's nice. So this is the road that the ride starts on. This is the south side of it. This is North Crest. It's just another way to get to it. It's a quieter way. It gives us an opportunity to just kind of chat and ride in. This area has grown tremendously in the last few years. It was not all built up like this. They cut all the trees and put all these shopping centers here. You know, so it's the whole landscape has changed. Yeah, that guy that went by on that motorcycle, his exhaust was so loud. I was like, man, to sit on that thing, you're definitely going to get deaf. Your ears are not meant to be bombarded like that. That's what Paul's talking about. That's why people that work in factories wear earplugs. You're not supposed to pound your ears with certain decibels excessively. It's just, over time, you lose your hearing.
Your engine is not as powerful as mine.
We're just talking, you know, explaining to Jose that this is the road that takes us back to where we started, and, you know, giving him the lay of the land. And the intersection coming up is where Paul turns. He goes east on Spring Stubner. He lives about 3 to 5 miles east of this intersection. I think it's about 5 miles, thereabouts.
Okay, guys. It's been a real.
So I get the camera.
All right.
Good ride, man. Good ride.
Okay, man.
Yeah, Paul's turning that way.
Okay.
All right. Careful, buddy. Okay. Okay. Come on, guys. It's us. So Paul uses that distance to go ahead and cool down. He uses that to warm up to come to the ride, which is perfect. About I guess 5 miles is what? 8 kilometers, something like that. So we're going back to the start, and then Alan starts to ride really fast. I just let him go because, like I was talking about, this is where you kind of want to cool down. These guys drove to the ride, so like you see, we're doing about 33 kilometers an hour. Some of these drivers here make poor decisions. We got a driver in the curve coming up that decides to pass on the opposite lane into oncoming traffic in a curve. I think it's that one. And there was a car coming. The car had to end up slowing down, almost stopping to let him through. Like, he couldn't wait a few seconds. So you can see 35, 36 kilometers an hour. So after a while, I just decided I'm gonna just let him go because we need to cool down. You can see we're all over the road. Hugo's way back there. Jose, everybody's trying to cool down. So I'm not sure why he was going that fast, but we just kind of decided we would just spin in. You can see I'm letting the pace just drop. So everybody's catching back up. So yeah, you don't want to wait till the end of the ride to hammer yourself to the car. You want to kind of spin down, loosen your legs. And you can hear that we're going into the wind. So by the time I caught onto that, I turned off the power real quickly because there was no point to that. So I hope you guys got a chance to get out there, but this is what we did on Saturday, and it was a thrill to have Jose and Hugo join us from the City of Angels, Los Angeles. And they're going to be back next week. They're going to join us next week as well. So I hope they come back many more times in the future whenever they're in our region. Put us on your radar, boys, and just let us know. We'll be here. So get out there, get your miles in, and don't let anything don't let the weather or anything stop you from going unless it's unsafe. Stay consistent. Even if it's 30 minutes, get out there, spin around, do some sightseeing on the bike, whatever, just get out there. So we're back at the start here, and we're rolling the parking lot. Hope you guys enjoyed the ride. Stay tuned for more next week. Good ride, guys.